Good afternoon, counselors, and welcome to our session titled Virtual School Counseling During Emergency School Shutdowns. I had this webinar with special guests Joe Bargione, Kaet Barren, Troy Reynolds, Michelle Sircy, myself, and Kim Walters. We offered ELA certificates at the end of the session, so you should have a link for that in your inbox. If you need a link, please email me. All right, so it's really important to me that at this time we really work to collaborate with school social workers, school psychologists, our Friskies. We have to build a community in this time of uncertainty. We have a lot of people that just really respond to this pandemic differently. Some aren't going to be as concerned as others, and you just never know where people are. So our goal as mental health professionals is to stay calm, continue to be resilient, and continue to show that to the people that we serve. This is an unlikely opportunity, but an opportunity nonetheless. So for school counselors, many times I hear you say that you don't have time to get into school and do school counseling curriculum lessons because you're so busy doing, ARC chairperson or testing or those other duties as assigned. So let's take this opportunity to record any school counseling curriculum lesson you possibly can based on themes for your student. Use the Ask a Student Mindsets and Behaviors document that I'll show you in a little bit. But really take this time to make those recordings so you can be that proactive counselor that you need to be for your comprehensive school counseling program versus that reactive counselor that we often are. It's also important to remember that, just as I said a moment ago, collaboration with anybody that has the best interests of our students at mind is important, right? By collaborating, we're going to need to support one another. It's extremely important that counselors support each other during this time. It's very easy for us to feel like we're on an island by ourselves in this work because there's just so much work to be done. So make sure that during this time of uncertainty, you're reaching out to fellow counselors, whether they're school counselors, mental health counselors, school psychologists, Friskies, etc. Work as a team. How can you manage your students' needs together? And then make sure that you're communicating. Make sure that you have open communication about what's going well, what's not going so well. You also, for any good team to work well, you have to have that trust. Okay, so make sure that you've really worked to build trust with your team. It can be very easy to, when somebody says you need to work from home today, to get up and put your pajamas on and just kind of lounge around and maybe do some work and maybe not. So you need to remain motivated. Many of you are always motivated, but during these unusual times, you might lack a little bit of that. So remember to work with your colleagues to stay motivated and to kind of keep each other's spirits up. So inspiration, find your inspiration. How can you be innovative during this time in order to provide the needs of your students, for them and their families? So think outside of the box, be innovative, reach out to me, reach out to some of my panel guests, and find that inspiration that we all need so much. And then finally, when you do all these things, I think you're going to find a lot of success. I think you're going to realize that while some of the things that we're mentioning in this webinar are challenging, when you do it, you're going to feel so much better that you overcame some of the obstacles, some of the challenges of that, and at that point you will find some success. You will feel successful. All right, so continuity of care is really what we're going for during this unusual time. We want to make sure that our parents and our students never feel like they're alone when they're burdened with just different things that they might be going through on a social or emotional level. So we want to always make sure that they know that we're around, we're here for them, and that we're accessible. There are 3 pillars of school counseling that I think apply to most types of counseling that we're talking about today. So we're going to focus on, as school counselors, we're focused on academic counseling, career counseling, and then social and emotional health. So our job is really to figure out how we can help students and families with each of these 3 pillars during this time. So we need to figure out how are we communicating our role? What is the availability for individual or group counseling? What emergency numbers can we provide? We should definitely be providing 911, suicide prevention hotline, crisis text line, etc. Community agency phone numbers in our region. And then here again, we really need to be thinking about that proactive counseling that I mentioned before and offering those school counseling curriculum lessons based on the ASCA mindsets and behaviors for student success. And then recommendations for parents. Earlier, when I did this session live, I mentioned there aren't any parents that just wake up and say, I think I'm going to be a bad parent today. But there are parents that feel like they are ill-equipped to offer homeschool for their kid. So it's really up to us to offer recommendations for parents on different activities they can do with their child, different ways they can help their child learn, and then different ways that can help that child on that social and emotional level. So we spoke with our KDE attorneys and got approved for you to use Google Voice. So you can use this. It will make your phone number anonymous, so you won't necessarily be giving out your personal cell phone number, but you'll be giving out a Google Voice number. Students can call you, and if you'll allow them, they can also text you. There's also Microsoft Teams. That is how I'm recording this session right now. Microsoft Teams is a way that you can hold virtual conversations along with Google Hangouts. You can make sure that it's important for you to know that those are FERPA compliant. So as long as you're not recording those sessions with students or families, then those would be sufficient. All right, here's an example of virtual collaboration. This is what JCPS is doing. They are offering counselors many ways to do virtual school counseling, and then they're really using this as a way for counselors to come in and pin ideas. So if a counselor says, I have a really neat way that I want to do academic advising or video lessons, and they can click on that link, or they can even create a new link and then add different recommendations that they're using to find success with their own virtual counseling. So there are 3 ground rules for telehealth to cover with parents and students. First off, we're going to get verbal permission, and we're going to follow up with written permission when time permits and when we're back in school, if possible, when possible. This is really going to be for that social and emotional counseling. There should be absolutely no recording on either end if you choose to do a virtual meeting with a student or his or her family. Also, you need to discuss confidentiality at the outset, so make sure that nobody else is in the room and that this is a conversation completely between you and the person that you're serving or people that you're serving. Okay, make sure you document any phone call or virtual call that you do. So just go to Infinite Campus, go to that counseling tab and go to general, and then go to contact log and make sure you enter every contact you have with a family or student in there. Here are some different ways that counselors have found success already during this pandemic. This is from Iroquois High School. They were able to offer Google phone numbers. Here, they also made sure that they let their families and students know about different resources available, which include the crisis hotline, text line, and suicide prevention hotline. This is from Judy Rice. I think it's great when we kind of show people that, we're not stopping just because school is out right now or because it's an NTI day, that we're really here working and we're trying to be innovative and find special ways to connect with kids. So this is just one way that one counselor in Henry County was able to show that. This is out of Woodford County. This is their email notification saying that they are available from 8 to 4 p.m. Um, they're also offering those crisis text lines and hotlines. They're also offering regional community-based agency organizations. This is what JCPS is doing, which is great. They're kind of giving tips to remind parents about. And this is kind of how school counselors are approaching this time for their families. Marshall County High School is doing something really cool. They've got a blog here. Here they offer different ways for students and families to contact the counselor. This is my good friend Jennifer. She's awesome. They can email her. They can contact her through a form. She's also offering virtual office hours, which is cool. She's doing a lot of this through Zoom. So she will literally just have that Zoom window open from, let's say, 10 to 12, and a student can pop in and out of that Zoom. If there are multiple students that want to get in at the exact same time, then she's got them in a waiting room, and they'll just go one right after another for confidentiality. All right. As a reminder, we want to make sure that we're reminding students, because they're going to be looking to us. They're looking to adults right now, the adults in their lives. So when we're working with students, we want to remind them that, we don't have all the answers right now, but what we do know is that social distancing is important, along with, washing their hands often. We have a lot of students in our state that are super anxious, and this could be a troubling or difficult time for them. So let's make sure that we're reminding them to be mindful, to practice mindfulness, and offering them some different ways to do that. So we also need to think about this, right? So when we think about our own students who are reluctant learners, or children with trauma, or angry, or hurt, or unsupported, homeless, foster children, children with poverty or food insecurity, children with a history of suicidality, children with high levels of anxiety, or children with grandparents as caregivers. We've got to find ways to reach out to these children during this time, right? We also need to figure out what do I need to do as a school counselor or mental health professional to collaborate with other staff to make sure that all the needs of my students are being met. Trauma is also prevalent throughout our state. So remind your students that have gone through traumatic events, that these are tips that are going to be extremely helpful for them, right? Ask for space when you need it. Tell parents or guardians to create predictable routines for them. Remind students about having a positive perspective. Remind them that you're there for support and that there are always choices, etc. All right. So students under distress, can we check on them right now? When you do, if it's a phone call home, just introduce yourself and remind parents that you're checking in with your students because of NTI Day. So if there is skepticism, just remind them that that's what you're here for. You have a special relationship with your kiddos, and you want to make sure that they're doing well. So you can even be jovial with that introduction, just to make sure that parent understands that you're there as a support. Remind folks that they need to be maintaining a routine schedule, a routine and a schedule if possible. Also, as a reminder to you, emergency services and assessments are still available at mental health agencies. If there's a therapist involved, is this therapist offering telehealth? So just kind of connecting families with that, making sure that they know that there's still options to get their child or children the help that they need. It's easy to just kind of be burnt out and kind of feel that compassion fatigue, especially when you're hustling over these few weeks while everybody else might be kind of, just at home. So with compassion fatigue, it is extremely real. Self-care is extraordinarily important. So take time for yourself to give yourself what you need, right? For me, it's getting on the bike, right? As much as I can, getting on the bike. That's my way of practicing self-care. For you, it might be getting outside and doing a walk, going on a walk, or playing with your kids. But whatever that is, as long as it's healthy, make sure you're finding time for that, because it is easy to have compassion fatigue. What you do is superhuman. You are heroes. You are truly heroes. So you've got to make sure that that although you give everything you can to other people, that you also give a little bit to yourself as well, or a lot to yourself. But as I said earlier, make sure that whatever you choose to do is healthy. All right, so we often talk about being data-driven school counselors and data-driven folks in education. So we're going to look at the data, we're going to have an insight, and then that insight is going to create an action, right? So this would be a time for you to start planning for what those actions are going to be. To keep it simple, if you look at ABC data as a school counselor, this should be really helpful for you. So think about attendance, behavior, and course passing data. Here are some different reports that you can run in Infinite Campus that should also be helpful. Look at the transient report to better understand who's been at multiple schools within the same school year, the last 2 years and the last 5 years. Do the early warning tool, which will help you understand how at risk a student is of dropping out. It'll also help you understand stability factors for students. Persistence to graduation report would be something that school counselors in elementary schools should run. Look at that chronic absenteeism list. Data visualization will be very helpful for you as well, although you will need to ask your district for permission. A student summary report, I've given you the pathway here to know how to get to that report, but that's going to give you everything on one screen for a single child. So run that to better understand what's going on with a student. Are they passing their classes? Are they attending regularly? How's their behavior doing? All that's going to be right there. Also, consider running failure reports, and then checking progress with online classes is going to be really important, especially for students recovering classes. All right, so now I'm gonna send you back over to the final piece of our session from earlier today. I wanted to do an individual session just because there were so many different distracting noises earlier. It was my mistake. I didn't realize that that there would be so many distracting noises. So I wanted to make sure that I offered you a distraction-free video. Next, you can watch the video from earlier where I have panelists like Joe Bargione, Michelle Sircy, and Kaet Barren contributing to the conversation. Thank you so much for your attention. Let me know if I can do anything for you.